Donde, Kevin Blackistone. Today, Yank Sox. Vikings, Eagles. Mahomes versus the Jaguars D.
Mahomes.
Patrick Chung versus all you Cobra Kai posers. And Ndamukong Suh versus roughing the passer penalties. Let's go around the horn.
Sweep the leg.
It's Around the Horn, the show of competitive banter. Here's Tony Reale.
Yankees and Sox, first postseason matchup since
the last time?
Since the last time. Absolutely right. Thank you, Kevin Blackistone. 2004. It's also the 20th, 21st, 22nd, and maybe 23rd and 24th times they're playing each other this season. Those games in the regular season went 10-9 Boston. Oddly, a lot of blowouts in them from both sides. Jay Adonde, what do you expect from these two teams that know each other so well, and what will this series come down to?
Yeah, you can't look at the aggregate numbers because there were so many distorted blowout victories, but I think you can look at the home road splits, and it made such a difference. For example, the Yankees pitcher ERA was almost 3 runs per game higher in the games in Fenway Park compared to Yankee Stadium. So the fact that Boston has home field advantage, I know it doesn't mean much in baseball anymore, in a sport where 3 of the last 4 Game 7s in the World Series went to the visiting team, but I think it will come into play in this series.
Way to really undercut your argument when you got to the end there. Blackistone, how about you?
Yeah, I think home field advantage does make a big difference, but I think one of the things that will make the biggest difference is the Red Sox offense. Everybody pays attention to the slugging of the Yankees. Those 267 major league record home runs that they hit. But it's interesting that the Red Sox offense is actually better. A better on-base percentage, actually scored more runs, 25 more, despite hitting 59 fewer home runs. They create a lot of opportunities, put a lot of pressure on the other team's defense, and I like that.
Mina Kimes?
I disagree. I don't think Boston has a huge advantage in offense. They did score more runs, but remember, Aaron Judge wasn't there for a lot of the season, and the Yankees, according to Fangraphs, actually have a higher WRC+, which accounts for ballpark. Now, Boston does have an advantage in starting pitching, but I question that as well because David Price, we know, has struggled in the postseason. Chris Sale has been shaky down the stretch. Meanwhile, New York's bullpen is much better, and I think that could be the difference.
So you think advantage Yankees in this series?
I do, yes. Because
citing your Fangraphs stat, but also your Kimes Times research. Okay, very good. Don't think we didn't see that, the Kimes Times that you authored in your youth. Now it's floating around the internet. Woody Page, how about you?
Mina's onto something, but I got to add to what you were talking about. The bullpen of the Red Sox in September was the worst in the American League. And let's talk about the starting pitching that everybody says, oh, it's so good. David Price has never started a postseason game, and his team ended up winning. He's 0-9. His team is in those starts. The 3 best pitchers of the Red Sox have never won a postseason game. Chris Sale, also 0-1 when he started last year. So when you're going up against a great offensive team like the Yankees, we know they both are, that pitching is going to make a difference. And the Yankees pitching, and we saw people who questioned their starting pitcher yesterday, that they actually have the advantage.
So that's 2 saying New York has an advantage going into the series, even though Boston had the 108-win season, and they won the season matchup. And I know it was 10-9, but they were really out in front until the last series when they had basically already clinched the division. All right, 2 for New York. Back in, Jay Adonde, sure.
Well, yeah, still like the Red Sox, but it is interesting to know. I'm actually going to throw out exit velocity as a relevant stat in this case because Aaron Judge came back and had the highest exit velocity recorded in postseason since they started using this stat, surpassed only by Giancarlo Stanton. But it showed that he was back to being the Aaron Judge, and that's something that we didn't see throughout the course of this entire regular season matchup.
KB,
but let's not forget, Chris Sale missed some starts as well in the second half of the season. He's back with that 2.11 ERA. That's huge. And David Price at home is a different beast. 9-2, 2.49.
Well, maybe he's a beast then, because he hasn't been a beast in the postseason at all, and that's what the spotlight's going to be on, as Woody Page accurately pointed out. We'll move on. Braves Dodgers Game 1. Ryu dominance. And now Atlanta gets a roused Kershaw. Quote, I don't need to prove myself to anybody. End quote. That's talking about being the Game 2 starter. What's Kershaw saying there? What does it mean for the Dodgers? What does it mean for the Braves, Woodrow?
He does have to prove himself. Let's think about his past in the postseason. Talking about Price, that he started 24 postseason games. He's won 7 of those. His record overall is 7-7, but his ERA is twice as much as it is in the regular season. Remember that series against the Cardinals where he just was awful?
Yeah, we remember that series, but remember last year when the Dodgers made the World Series, got to Game 7, and he supposedly exercised demon after demon in the series leading up to it?
I don't think that's happened. I think there was a reason why the Dodgers said, let's don't start him in the first game. Let's try and get out to 1-0 lead. I think he's going to have a great night. I've seen him very often recently because they were playing the Rockies like 18 out of 20 games. But and he looks good to me. Even when he struggles, he actually hangs it together. So I think he's got a lot to prove tonight, though, still. Those demons have not all been excised.
See, I find this, I don't want to say it's funny, but there is a storyline about Clayton Kershaw that he doesn't pitch well in the postseason. Then he has an incredible appearance, and people say, well, that'll put that storyline to bed. And then it comes right back again the next time. It doesn't go away. Jay Donde, how do you read
it goes away when we see him being doused with champagne, maybe going a complete game to the World Series. The last postseason start he couldn't maintain a 4-run lead and then a 3-run lead. And yes, he pitched well in relief in Game 7, but by then it was too late. You know what he needs to prove? For example, he can live up to Hyun-Jin Ryu, who last night threw 7 shutout innings, 8 strikeouts. You know who that matched in the annals of Dodger history? That was up there with Don Drysdale, Sandy Koufax, and Oral Hershiser. You could argue that you put Clayton Kershaw with that group. That's the Mount Rushmore of Dodger starting pitchers, but he doesn't have the postseason success that they do. So, yes, there's still more on the plate for him.
So you believe he's extra motivated here by the team making him the Game 2 starter instead of the Game 1 starter? Okay. KB, how about you?
Well, I don't know what more he has to prove. I mean, you just pointed it out, Tony. We thought that those bad starts that he had or unfortunate endings to those starts that he had in previous playoff games had been erased by last season. And the other thing is, you listen to Bob Costas. I mean, he reels off this guy's Hall of Fame resume, which we all know all too well. So he's correct in saying he doesn't have anything to prove. And right now we're talking about the NLDS right now. We're not talking about the World Series. So I think that he's fine where he is. He's got a horrible ERA this year of 2.73. Oh, my God, bringing that into the game. Exactly. Kershaw will be all right.
It's comical, though. I mean, even the idea of extra motivation is comical. Wouldn't you agree, Mina Kimes? You're not in the mood, you get in the mood. That's what we say on this show.
You're right. I mean, look. Not starting him, that wasn't a referendum on his postseason record. That was a referendum on his recent record because he's been good, but he hasn't been great. And judging by Hyun-Jin Ryu's performance, it was the right decision by Dave Roberts. But I think it's undeniable when we're talking about Clayton Kershaw's career and where he stacks against the greats. Koufax had a .95 postseason ERA. It matters. I'm sorry, but it just does. And unless, Clayton Kershaw does lead this team to the World Series and does improve his ERA in the postseason, he's always going to be second to him.
Mm-hmm. Make a pick for tonight's game, Woody Page. What do you get from Kershaw?
Oh, it's the Dodgers. They're going to sweep the series. But Clayton Kershaw has not even been the best pitcher on that roster this year. That's Buehler. And Buehler's taking his 3 days off, and he'll be in good shape to start later this series.
I love how quickly and easily you just missed the Atlanta Braves in this series. Like this entire panel has done the entire season. Is anybody going to say one word about the Atlanta Braves before we move on? Forget it. You guys, these scores are going so far down right now for the disrespect you're giving Atlanta. We move on. Football time. Patriots 38, Colts 24. What you can possibly learn about New England from a Thursday night win over Indianapolis. Mina Kimes, you want to start us off?
Sure. By the way, I suffered a much greater point deficit there than anyone else, so I'd like to get some of that back here. We learned that Julian Edelman makes a huge difference, right? And he didn't have tremendous yardage, but his presence on the field drastically altered the Patriots' offense. One thing you saw last night, they used 11 personnel with 3 wide receivers, significantly more than they have in the previous 4 weeks. And when they did, Brady was fantastic. 82% completion percentage, threw for 290 yards out of that grouping. He's so clearly more comfortable when Edelman is on the field as an outlet for him. And I expect the Patriots offense to keep rolling through the rest of the season now that Julian's back.
KB?
Absolutely agree. And the other thing, they kept Tom Brady nice and clean last night for the most part. Not only Edelman, but Josh Gordon. You can see him fitting into that offense, gives them more weapons. This is an offensive league more this year than it's ever been before. We all know that. That's what you're going to win with. So to me, I'm looking at the Patriots, and I know that their defense is extremely spotty, but you know whose defense is not much better? The Kansas City Chiefs, and we're not going to be raising the same questions about them. Their offense is back, and so are the Patriots.
Jay Adonde?
Yeah, Edelman and Brady were back in sync as if no time had passed whatsoever. And Edelman and Brady and Gordon, more importantly, were like this with each other on that broken play that turned into like a 50-yard touchdown pass. So they showed that they can work together, that Gordon can understand. If you listen to the Andrea Kramer, Hannah Storm version of the broadcast last night, as I did on Amazon Prime, they were talking about how Brady's receivers say the most important thing is to think like he thinks. That's how you'll survive and do well with him. And Gordon was able to think like Brady thinks.
Woody Page.
Let me extend it a little bit. When you add White and the job he did last night, Gronkowski on a bad leg, you could tell that he'd limped around all night. You've added Gordon, and Edelman back, and Hogan. That is a fivesome that is great for Brady to throw to, and I thought that end zone pass that he threw, that long pass, that was fantastic. But let's just slow down a little bit. The Colts are pathetic. That is a bad football team. So until you see them against the Chiefs, I'm not ready to declare them back and the favorites in the AFC.
Well, it's very good because you know who they're playing next week. They're playing the Chiefs, so we will get to see that. Mina Kimes, Patriots sack on luck. No roughing there. Now, it wasn't Ndamukong Suh, sure. But with the league recalibrating all the calls in the first 3 weeks of the season, is a no call here okay?
It's not. I'm laughing because this is what we've been wanting, right? For them not to call roughing the passer, but of course it benefited the Patriots on the first call. It always seems to work out that way. But it is, I think, actually a good thing if the refs are dialing back, and we're going to keep a close eye on that this weekend to see if they hold on to their whistles.
Adonde?
If you look at it, Chung landed on the ground. He kind of rolled over, and then Flowers landed on Chung. So this wasn't the same as these Clay Matthews plays.
Okay.
And guess what? If your protection is that bad that there are 3 guys within 2 steps of the quarterback, you don't deserve to get a roughing the passer. Slow flag on the offensive line for roughing the passer.
Really?
His full
That was the worst protection I've ever seen.
Roughing the passer. Man,
yes, that was the worst protection I've ever seen. Except for that other time when the Colts had only the center. Remember that formation?
All right.
I only have the center there.
We got you. We're going to take a break right here. Buy or sell is next. Mina Kimes, what's leading the Kimes times for buy or sell?
Hopefully a victory for Mina.
Or a trip to Cole's Farms. I mean, I really want to know what's going on with that Western movie.